Hey, watercolor class. So this is part 2 of the Trompe demo, video demo um, presentation. So we painted the underside of, or the kind of the underside of this project. In other words, the background, and then now we're going to try to do the foreground, which is the which is just to try to show the illusion, this sort of tape in 3 dimension as sort of this kind of hovering out over the image. And that's going to be kind of the trick, the visual trick. So to paint the tape as if is coming off the page, so to speak. And so I'm going to remove this tape masking masked out area. And this could be done with masking. If you're masking off, you could do this with masking fluid. Tape is beneficial if it's like a large area. Masking fluid is beneficial if it's like brush strokes or kind of more finite little things, but tape works well with big broad area like this. And you can see this blue painter's tape doesn't stick to the, it doesn't pull up the paper with it, as long as it's removed when it's nice and, when the paper is nice and dry. So I want to get an eraser and remove any traces of my underdrawing. Just so that that doesn't show up too much. Don't really need any guidelines anymore, particularly because it's pretty specific shape. There. And when I start painting, I think it's probably a good idea not, if I want the edges to stand out, of the tape to stand out, kind of pop off the paper, it's to my advantage to maybe leave a little bit of a halo going on, at least to begin with, and then I can always remove some of it. But if I really want the edge to kind of pop up or pop off this background, then leave a little bit of light around some of the edges at least. And you can see I already painted in a few shadows before I ever removed the stencil, so that this white appears to be kind of coming off the surface a little bit already. So that's a good sign. There. And now I'm just going to try to paint. This should happen pretty rapidly, the transformation anyway. I'm thinking it's the blue that I'm looking at is kind of more of an aqua blue on the blue-green side. So I'm using a color called manganese blue, and then I'll maybe alternate that with a cobalt blue, because a cobalt blue is more, that's kind of a like a purpley blue, and this is more of a green blue. So I'll use those, combination of those two predominantly, and then and just start painting. So I think it's important to show just to show the highlights. So as I paint this in, I'm going to start out relatively conservatively. And I'm just going to kind of do these different sections. Basic light, dark patterns. So here's one section, and the tape kind of curves up over here. So I'm going to paint around it there. There's an end of a tape that comes up. So this is the end of the tape. and then it's overlaid on top of another. I shouldn't have, and this is kind of a torn edge, so it's kind of rough like that. And you can go back and alter things as they're drying. So here's another kind of area where the tape curves a little bit, it's folded, or it bubbles up. Okay, just pretty much flat patterns at this point. And then one just has to move around. So there's this kind of triangular section here, then here's another dark area. And then there's this kind of curvy area there where there's a little bit of a highlight. Usually if there's a dark area, then it corresponds with a highlight. Here's where I'm kind of leaving just a little bit of a lightish border edge on the tape. And here's where it's kind of, right here is where it's kind of curving, so there's a little highlight. Basically, they're just patterns to start with. There. And then and you can also kind of modify the color. Well, now I'm going for ultramarine blue. Cobalt and ultramarine are very similar, just that cobalt's perhaps a little lighter. So I'm dropping in a little ultramarine here just to give a kind of a shadow. So it goes like cool, warm. In this case, if you're comparing the two blues, in this context, the aqua blue, that would be my warm blue, and then the ultramarine would be my cool blue. There. This area is kind of generally just darker. So then go back and look what's going on here. There's sort of a soft edge here. So now that it's dried a little bit there, I'm going to kind of do this. I want a little bit of a blurred edge, and so I'm just lifting a little bit of the paint and letting that edge kind of be a little bit more natural looking as it dries, not like a hard stroke. And the same here. And in fact, I think I'll go ahead and make this darker. Sometimes it's just worth letting the paint sit a little bit before you try and do everything. So where there's a curve, where the tape sort of jumps up off the surface, I'm making it just a little darker. Okay, and then I'm going to try to integrate the two of them together. Let them just sort of blend. And this is wet over here, so I don't want to get, I might come back here later when this is dried more, but that's kind of the idea. This will be, these will be kind of blended together a little bit like that. And then I'll have to come back and accent a little bit. So I just want that to sort of pop up a little bit, like it's in, this is in shadow, this is catching more direct light. Then this gets a little darker right here. So then I'm adding some more of that ultramarine. Seems like I can get through this process just with pretty much these two different types of blue. And then the other thing I can do always is kind of lift paint, lift out highlights, for instance. Right here, I think I want it to be kind of light, so I can lift the paint out both when it's drying and after it's dried already, you know, by just wetting the brush. So there's one area. Then I have to just move around and kind of repeat that process until the whole surface basically gets covered. And then there's another round then where I go back and kind of adjust it a little bit. But you can kind of see it starts to sort of pop off the paper a little bit. It'll make a lot more sense as I you know, just have as long as I have faith in the process and just kind of follow through, it should be all right. You know, it never seems like it's going well when you first start out. You think, oh, this isn't going to do anything, and then you keep at it, and it seems, you know, as long as you're consistent and you stay with it, usually there'll be something close to whatever your desired result is. It's never going to be the way you wanted it exactly. All right, so good. I'm going to jump ahead then. Turn the video off for a while, work some more so that it doesn't become too lengthy. Okay, so I've worked a little longer, just filling in the different tones of the tape. So then it's kind of this overall pattern, and then trying to leave areas out where the surface is somewhat reflective. And then just doing that, you know, starts to create this illusion. And then it's a matter of going back and either sharpening or lifting some paint, sharpening edges. So for instance, right here, there's kind of a highlight on this tape. It's kind of a rounded highlight. So I might try to soften the edge to show that round curve. So just kind of dissolve the paint a little bit, just to give it a more gentle kind of edge. And then same with over here. That's dried a little bit more. It's dried, so now I can maybe come in and create kind of a little bit of a highlight. And then right there, that edge, there's a crease, so maybe I make it darker there. I'm making a dark blue kind of, I want a shadow, so I'm kind of taking like 3 blues and mixing them together, but also putting like a little kind of brown color in it just to make it a deeper tone. I don't want it too dark, or else it doesn't really feel like it's part of that surface. Got it too wet there. That's a problem that I might correct later. Okay, so filling in. Putting additional color down. Now I'm also maybe removing some of the, I don't want too much white. I just want some white, but not so much white that it doesn't look like it's, part of the taped surface. So just a little bit of white around some of the edges just to make them pop, make it pop off a little bit more. And then trying to clarify some of the wrinkles and folds in the tape. Right here, I feel like the blues are too different almost. So that might be where I take, I want it to be more kind of aqua color. So I might glaze in, that's too wet still. I might glaze in some more aqua into that deeper blue. So then at least it looks like it's the same, it's kind of the same surface because the colors, the blue will be more related. Here I can maybe darken that a little bit with an additional glaze. It's supposed to be kind of curving up like that. Over here, this blue doesn't really seem related to this aqua blue, so I'm going to glaze a little bit of aqua blue over that, just to try to unify them a little bit, and maybe a little bit of aqua glaze there. I still want my little highlight there. So this kind of tweaking business, takes a little time, but it helps to, it's just a more of adjusting kind of process. You basically got everything you need, except you just want to adjust things to make it more convincing. Right here, I don't believe that I need that edge to be so dominant, so I'm just gonna simplify it a little bit. I think that helps. Not such a glaring white there. And then same thing here, maybe eliminate some of that edge. And over here, there's a highlight across this where there's a fold, but then this needs a little toning over here. I'm just kind of doing this, I'm kind of going around scattershot now because I have to be patient about the paint drying. So I can do a little bit to all these areas, but then it might have to dry a little more. So then I just have to be patient and come back to it. This I'm just going to kind of wash over, sort of a nondescript area. And in here, There's kind of like a little sort of little highlight there where the light's catching it. So I'm going to try to graduate a darker tones from here and then get it a little bit light, darker here, lighter up there. And blend it a little bit. And then up here, it gets a little bit darker again. So I'm just going to add more paint. So the adjustments are more finite. But one can spend a lot of time with the minutia, but it does make a difference. And then of course you don't want to overwork it. Ultimately, when I kind of finish this process, I'm just going to go and make a few marks or edges, kind of pretty dark edges. But overall, it looks to be kind of clarifying itself and becoming, kind of a whole, with with peaks and valleys, and it seems to be separating from the paper. But then it just, it's a question of all these little sort of marks and accents. If I want to make the effort, take the time to really bring that extra clarity out, I think it might be helpful. One thing I can do, I'm looking at not to get too far away from the blue, but there's not a whole lot more I can do with the blue. But one thing I can do here is create a shadow, a darker shadow along this edge. Which will hopefully make this pop out a little bit more. And the woman's shoulder, Mrs. Milkerman's shoulder, kind of, you see it through the shadow. So, and her dress is darker, so I might make the shadow darker to indicate where her dress comes, kind of like over here. So that's something, maybe right here, shadow can get darker, and that makes this edge pop out a little bit more. Shadows will have a couple tones to them. Just try not to lift what's underneath there already. And a shadow, additional shadow there. I made a mark right here was unfortunate. Kind of lost my edge. There. So continuing to adjust kind of minute little outlines if you need to clarify it with the tip of your brush if you want to sharpen. I wouldn't get into wholesale outlining, but just some for the sake of clarity. And the outline, the shadow depends on how, if the shape projects farther off the surface, like here, then the shadow won't just be a line, but it'll have kind of a broader aspect to it. I'm lifting a little bit of that. A little bit more here. There. Let it, I have to let it dry to see what it actually is going to look like. It's not clear to me yet that, if that I have that right. And then also I want to show her hairline. I want things to be visible through the shadow, or else it's going to lose its effectiveness. So I have to kind of make sure that the shadow appears somewhat transparent. Okay, now paint's dried a little bit more washes. Here, for instance, just a light wash, just to create more unity around here. This highlight here is a little sharp, so I'm going to soften it. These extra washes, I'm using basically three kinds of blue, and I'm alternating the washes a little bit. Just, if I get a little bit of each blue in every area, then the color seems to unify a little bit more. There's an edge of tape here, I can kind of make a mark. And up here, let's see. Trying to simplify that a little bit. That could probably used to be more blue. And then I mentioned eliminating the non-essential white. You don't want it everywhere, or else it has more impact if you use it selectively. So this doesn't need to be absolutely white, just maybe a little lighter, but not white. Same with this edge, doesn't need to be white. That helps a lot, actually. And over here, this edge certainly doesn't need to be white. So one can really go on and on. But it, you know, it's starting to finalize itself pretty fast, just when you realize this, you're out of options to do more. I'm correcting a little highlight here just by removing some paint. Can't see it, but there. Just took an edge out there. Not entirely thrilled with that area yet, but it's getting there. There. Kind of coming, you know, coming to a close, I would say. Maybe darker over here. Yeah, all this is a little darker. Making more of a shadow down there. So I'd say very, very close. Down here. Oh, here's something like if you have color that kind of bleeds over an edge that you're trying to do, then you can remove, once everything dries, you can kind of remove the color. There. And then hope that it doesn't continue to migrate. Okay, so then it's always good in the end to sit back a little bit, walk away, and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes. And then maybe one final, you know, dab or two there, here or there, and then call it done. So I think I'm at that point. But I will walk away and I'll come back and then make one final assessment and then call it done. So one final view. I guess it's done because there, you know, at some point, some level, you realize, well, it can't get any better. It can only get worse. And then that's how you know it's done. So, Trompe l'oeil watercolor, fooling the eye.